Welcome to the Team Teach podcast. I'm Clare, and in each episode you'll find me talking with an expert guest to learn more about behaviour. We squeeze a lot into each episode. You'll listen to the latest thinking in behaviour, continue your professional development with our book recommendation, and then I'll send you away with 3 practical tips you can use in your setting. I'm joined today by Ali Manning. Ali has over 30 years experience in working with people and specialising in behavioural management. She is a principal Team Teach trainer and she works across different specialisms. She works closely with empowering staff, working with vulnerable individuals and groups to improve and promote wellbeing and self-management. And today, Ali and I are talking about consciously effective staff. Enjoy the episode. Hi, Ali, how are you?
Hi, Claire, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm looking forward to the topic. I actually have heard you sometimes on Team Teach courses that you run talking about this topic, which is developing consciously effective teams. And I'm looking forward to picking your brain a bit about it. And it's something that I know will help services listening. Do you mind starting off just with a little bit about yourself and kind of your experience with the topic?
Yeah, sure. I've been around probably too long, to be honest, but I have been around for a long time in this field of working with people, and started off with sort of younger children, but have worked with many different genres. And one of the sort of one of the common factors is there's lots of really good, intuitive, initiative staff. And I was one of those when I first started. You just kind of know your clients, you know, your people, you can read signals and understand what they're thinking and feeling, sometimes even before they can. And I've done that for years and years and years in different fields and genres. But it's that step up that I kind of enjoy sharing with other people, and also picked up for myself. When I realised that sometimes what I did needed to be imparted to the young people, and having done this a long time in different worlds, and worked with some challenging, or not, I hate the word challenging, but some people who haven't been aware of themselves as much as they need to be, that clarity seems to have helped, and that's kind of why I went this way. But so I myself have done this in very different. It's hard to tell you what I've done in the way of experience because it's just been so long and so much of it.
I mean, we do only have 25 minutes podcast, yeah. But rest assured, Ali is experienced in the topic, and also is a principal Team Teach tutor as well. But let's do our reflective question. I love asking this question because lots of different things come up. But what you wish you knew then that you know now about the topic?
That I had faith in that what I did instinctively was normally okay. But having that affirmation and somebody to say that you're on the right track, and to justify your actions through self-reflection yourself and through teams sort of supervision and support, is something I would have given a younger me, I think, more of, because we're very critical of ourselves as practitioners, as we should be. And you always want to improve, which is great. But I think sometimes you need to build on what you're doing well, rather than always being critical of what you're getting wrong. And so staff who have that extra sensory link with the young people or the services users that they use need to be the ones who are more reflective of what they do, not because it's getting it wrong, but because they're getting it right. And I think I would have taught myself that's what you should be doing more of. And once you have that penny drop moment, that you can start sharing what you have seen in yourself with other people to help them work with who they're working with, but more importantly with the service users themselves, because it's most of the time when we work with our young people and our service users who have difficulties, it's giving them the strategies to cope with what they've got is our best tool, because they're always going to have those things. An anxious person is an anxious person. A person with some of the syndromes and things that we categorize them in doesn't suddenly lose those. They have to develop ways to deal with those, and our support in that process is probably the most important thing we can do. So yeah, I think looking back at myself, I would probably give myself a little bit more confidence and understanding that you're doing okay, and but just be more aware of what you're doing. Just be analytical, not critical of what you're doing.
Yeah, that's such an important phrase, Ali, there, that being analytical as opposed to critical. And I think some staff can find that really tricky. And as human beings, actually, we tend to be surrounded and swarmed by the negative. And I think maybe what you're saying in that introduction bit as well there is about, is it kind of wishing that you'd had that conscious awareness that you were being effective?
Yes, yeah, I was instinctive and I was intuitive, and I did, without blowing your own trumpet, because the other thing we're not very good at is praising ourselves. I was good at my job naturally, but that wasn't enough. There needed to be a bit more, and it took a while for that part of it to develop, and it took other good staff around me pointing out what I was doing in an analytical way, not a personal way, that actually made me start being more aware. And I think that's pretty much the basics of it. A self-awareness that you have to develop to enable you to help other people's awareness.
Did you know that you can become a trainer and deliver Team Teach training to staff within your own organisation? Have the flexibility to choose when, where and who you deliver your training to throughout the year. Find out more about this cost-effective option on the Team Teach website.
What is a consciously aware staff member?
So a conscious, it's like intuitive and instinctive staff. If they were in a school setting, for example, sitting in the playground, and they have in the distance a group of young people who are playing quite happily, and then something changes. There's some interaction they may not even be able to hear, but the body language is not quite right. So they get up and walk over and deal with it at a low level, no problems kind of way, and then move back away again. That is somebody who's done something effective. If you knew what triggered you to go over there, and if you understood what it is that the problem was, and if you can impart that to the young people in question, I can see you're upset because the football went off and you're not dealing with it well, however, you're now taking it to a level where you're not just dealing with it, you're going aware why you're dealing with it and sharing that information to others. I mean, that's a very simplistic example, because what we really need is the more complicated issues of people's emotions and feelings and understanding those. But sometimes it's the simplistic ones that we miss that are the most helpful to our service users. Does that make sense?
So it does totally. And actually, even though I've heard you do this on training courses, some things just clicked for me a little bit, that I guess I was thinking more that it's just about my own self-awareness as a practitioner and kind of knowing why I'm doing things and kind of what's going on for me. But it's interesting hearing you say that, because actually also what we're doing as consciously effective staff is almost like role modeling, narrating, supporting like that process in ourselves. So it's not an insular process. And that's something I hadn't actually taken quite on board, I don't think, with that idea.
Yeah, no, I think that sums it up really well, because if we can narrate what's going on, and that's not judging it or negating it, it's informing people what they are thinking and feeling with the clarity of observation. You're not assuming that they know those things, but you're just observing those things, and then giving them a solution in, as you say, role modeling, but also suggestions and thought processes that you can lead them into. That's the key to this, isn't it? I mean, it's no, we can be as self-aware as we like, but we're already rounded human beings, supposedly in a job that's supporting others.
Be for yourself, yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. But that's not helping anybody. If I'm aware of myself, I also need to impart that information so other people are aware of the strategies that I'm applying for them, Otherwise, I'm not equipping them to move forward with those emotions and feelings. And I think that was the biggest penny drop moment I had. A lot of people talk about supervision and self-awareness and self-reflection and improving your own behaviour, and all that's good. But it's all about us then, isn't it? And then, until we make that next step into how do we pass that on to the people that we're trying to support, you're finding out coping mechanisms for them, but you're not allowing them to find coping mechanisms for themselves. And I think that, for me, that's the greatest step that we need to take. And that's sometimes stating the blinking obvious, because the blinking obvious isn't what everybody else knows and understands. That's something also, I think, in my experience, I've found out that interpersonal skills and understanding what I feel is intuitive and instinctive isn't intuitive and instinctive in others. So it's got to be explained and understood, or taught in some respects.
Because I'm also thinking about staff, like how you said at the beginning, where you were working more on intuition and your natural, for want of a better phrase, instincts. How do we shift staff from that point of just being naturally, just kind of knowing what to do and how to do it? How do we create that shift into that conscious effectiveness?
I think that's got to be observation and compliments. I mean, not compliments in that you look good in that dress.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm not wearing a dress, just for transparency for the reader.
But compliments in that you did that really well. That worked. Well done for going over there, because then you start realizing that is what you did, and that is why you did it, and that you were standing in the. We talk, in Team Teach, and those people who listen to Team Teach, we bang on a lot about personal space and body language, and and the circles of danger. But how many times have we said somebody, well done, you were standing outside the circle of danger? Because that's where we've trained them to stand. And on a daily basis, it makes not a lot of difference. But on the day when they walked over to that particular, problem in the playground, not going into the circle of danger was a key factor to not adding to the problem. And if they're not aware that that's what they did or didn't do, we tell them when they did it, because they sometimes get caught. But we don't tell them, well done, you stepped away. And it's just, we make people conscious of things they do wrong, quite rightly. But do we equally make people conscious of things when they do it right?
So it's that observation support in a team where we're able to point out the things that might seem obvious, but they're maybe the more hidden things that people do, and they're doing it unconsciously. But by pointing it out, we're making it more conscious. So the person is acting a bit more purposefully.
Yes, I think so. And I think also being aware of it yourself, and also being aware that, because, habits can form. We talk a lot about habits being negative, but there's a lot of good habits and good establishments who've got good culture and good ethos. It becomes the norm to have staff who do things well. But that can become complacent if we don't have an awareness that that's what you're doing. It just, I don't know, it's hard to describe, isn't it? But if it's become a habit and you don't have to think about it, then it's easy to lose, because you're not thinking about it.
Maybe this is how we can sometimes get into a bit of a cycle in our services, like what you were saying, where people aren't aware of things. So you can get into this cycle of, we do things this way just because we do things this way.
Yeah. And that's for positive things, as well as negative things. And even if it's not worth doing it a different way, it's worth reviewing that it's being done, and it's being done rightly, and it's being done for the right reasons. And okay, we're not going to change it, but we know why we're doing it, and we know that we're doing it, with the longer longevity of the young person, or to actually adopt the strategies we're using as well. Because if they're just, if they will go out in the world and just think it is the norm and it's just done everywhere. They won't be aware that they need to put it into practice to make it happen if we don't kind of give them that practice to do so. You have to have your own penny drop moment, but you do need support in getting that, and a willingness to be self-analytical and aware, but a willingness to be kind to yourself and say that you do things well.
And we are, like you said, it's actually very hard for staff. I think maybe sometimes that can be a bit cultural as well, but it's hard to say, yeah, like I'm actually doing this really well. I know on some of the training courses that I run, I get some eyes wide open where I openly say, I'm really good at my job. I'm very good at what I do. There's a reason why I get asked to work with certain, pupils with emotional difficulties, because I'm really good at it. And you can see people's eyes just being like, what is she doing? Like, and I'm like, I'm not doing it because I'm like trying to big myself up or be an expert in the area. I'm just saying that I am consciously aware and I'm consciously effective at what I do. And I think a lot of the things that you've talked about is something that I think as practitioners, it's really important that we pride ourselves on. It's about self-reflection. And I really liked that word that you used, analytical. I think that's a really important word.
And it's also about that role modelling, isn't it? We can't expect our young people and service users to take pride in how they achieve things and what they do if we don't show how that works. I know we have to be professional, but we don't have to be robots. We have to show them how emotion works, because that's the bit that they sometimes don't connect to. So it's being aware when I'm showing it at the right time and why and how, and there's normally a cause and a reason to everything that you're doing, and that's your awareness of why you do it. Even when I used to raise my voice and get across to the group, I was aware I had raised my voice to gain attention. It would go up, it would come down, and then the information would go. And that's a controlled response that's got emotion in it, but it's not an out of control, reaction. Mm-hmm. So I have a consciousness that I'm needing to gain attention, especially in a group situation. But that's very different, that you don't use that when a child is shouting back at you, because it's not going to be effective, but also it's not teaching them how to stop doing what they're doing and give them an alternative way. And all of that is in my head, and I can have that in my head, and that's all good self-reflection, but I also somehow need to then project that onto them so that they also get that as well. And as you said, the best way is always role modeling.
Makes such a difference. Ali, I can't believe how quickly the time's gone. We better move on to 3 top tips on this topic.
3 top tips. I think one of the ones is be analytical rather than critical, which I like that saying, especially as I just came up with it. So it's pretty good, isn't it?
Copyright Ali Manning, 2024.
I think observation. You have to have your eyes open and your ears open and your senses open of understanding the minute stuff you're doing. And then I think probably the last one, which we mentioned as well, is be kind to yourself. Know when you've got it right and celebrate that fact. It's not you're not bigging yourself up or arrogant because we know what we get wrong. Why can't we know what we get right as well?
They're fantastic tips, and I think the listener's going to really leave with some really great ideas about reflective practice and being a consciously effective practitioner. Thank you so much. I hope so. But thank you so much for your time, Ali, and I'll catch up with you soon.
I hope so, that as well too.
You've been listening to the Team Teach podcast. It's been great to have you here with us as we discuss behaviour, communication, and the ways we can best support those in our care. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.